I'm editor-in-chief of Psychotherapy Networker magazine, and I am thrilled to be here this afternoon with two of my very favorite people that I get to work with, Shadeen Francis and Alexandra Solomon. Hi, you guys.
Hi.
Hello.
Good to see you.
Thank you for joining me, and welcome to everyone out there in live stream land, wherever you're joining us from, whatever platform you're on. We're really glad that you're here to be part of our conversation. And I just want to say before I introduce my guests and we get into this conversation that this is a conversation. How many times have I said conversation?
Okay.
But it really is.
We love the conversation.
I mean, that is what we're going to be talking about because you guys had a conversation in the pages of the magazine, essentially. But you, audience, are part of it. So please chat us up in the chat, and we will do our best to respond to you if you have any questions or just want to say hi and let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. And if maybe you are tuning in from under a rock somewhere, let me introduce our two guests in case you haven't heard of them. Shadeen is a therapist, a professor, and an author. She specializes in sex therapy, emotional intelligence. I need that. And social justice. We all need that. And she's a guest expert for various media outlets, including CBS and NBC and Psychotherapy Networker. Alexandra is faculty at Northwestern University, host of the fabulous podcast Reimagining Love, which everyone should tune into immediately. She's a renowned trainer. Come see her at Psychotherapy Network at Symposium. And Shadeen is also doing a workshop too. I didn't mean to leave that out. And Alexandra is author of 3 really great books, the latest of which is Love Every Day, which I see on the shelf behind you, Alexandra, and which I believe Esther Perel, I just saw this the other day, described as being like Belgian chocolate.
The sweetest endorsement, yes.
Literally
So
the
good.
sweetest endorsement, yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, that's right.
And hi, everyone. I see Janet from Houston, Allison from St. Lucia. Oh, I'd like to be there.
Oh, another small
York,
island person.
Southern
Wow.
California, LA, Virginia. Hi, Alicia.
Hi, Alicia.
Thanks for joining us. Let's get into it. The reason we're chatting today is because Shadeen and Alexandra penned a wonderful article. I'm going to hold it up again in the November-December issue of Psychotherapy Networker magazine, which, by the way, if you're not a subscriber, there's a QR code in the corner of your screen. And Cole, if you want to put the URL at the bottom of the screen, we're giving subscriptions away. It's a full year for just $12.
That's great.
$1 a month to get the best clinical wisdom and inspiration and stories that you could ever hope for as a therapist. So Shane and Alexandra teamed up to write an article. Ooh, you can see my underline. Teamed up to write a beautiful article, which we called Love Letters to the Field. And in essence, we wanted to highlight this is an issue about being a new therapist and really about how established therapists can help new therapists and validating the experience of being new to this field and the uncertainty that can come with it, but also the incredible passion and motivation that comes with being a new therapist. And you guys have a meetup recently, every year at the Networker Symposium, and that was the basis for this article, a meetup for new therapists who want to get together and talk about their experiences. And I want us to start, and so sorry, I'm going to open up the floor and then be quiet, but I want us to start by talking a little bit about something that came out of these meetups and also became the inspiration for this article, something that you call, or that you borrowed, I guess, a term called BHAGs. Big, hairy, audacious goals. And so I'm wondering, I'll turn it over. Why is it so important to nurture our BHAGs as a beginning therapist and also as an established one? What does that landscape look like?
Do you want to start us, Allie?
Sure. Well, I wanted to start because, you were talking about the magazine and this incredible offer. It was taking me back to my days as an emerging clinician and being a second year doctoral student at Northwestern and having a wonderful supervisor and professor, Vicki Seglin. And she said, okay, everyone in this room, 4 days, you need to ask your family to get you a subscription to, and back then it was called Family Therapy Networker. It's now called Psychotherapy Networker. And that was when I got my subscription, was like back in the 90s.
Wow.
This magazine has been part of my entire career. And it is, I think there's something so like elemental about having a magazine. Like we can access so much information on our phones, and that's lovely, and thank goodness for that. But to receive in the mail every other month a magazine you can hold in your hand and like get cozy on your couch and read, like I just cherish this magazine. So now to have written an article and to have written it with one of my very, very favorite colleagues, like I just have such endless admiration for Shadeen, was really a wonderful experience. And we've had so much fun the last few years at the conference hosting this meetup, and every year we got to make our circle bigger and bigger because word is spreading that it's pretty much the coolest thing that happens and we just create a space of dream, and we use this idea of BHAGs, and we hold a space, invite people to just say out loud, like maybe they can't even quite say it yet without blushing. The dream is so, juicy, as Shadeen would, I think, talked about in her part of the article. And just to have, there's something about, I think, the work of therapists that is so in the present. We are in our client stories and their lives right now. And that presence in the world as it is essential to our craft. It will never go away. But we deserve to also have a space that is a space of the imagination and the possible and the just kind of a little fog on the horizon. And so I think that's what I know, speaking probably for both of us, I think we both really cherish knowing that that's the antidote to burnout for therapists, is possibility, imagination, what if. And so I think we are really devoted to having spaces like that, where we can kind of instill that in folks as they're beginning their careers.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a beautiful opening, which is also why I treasure so much getting to hold these spaces with you, because we share in that so much that, when I think about the role of BHAGs, or, we talk a lot about dreams and dreaming, that as clinicians, as therapists, we are often the ones who are holding hope for an unrealized future for our clients. And it is heartbreaking to me how often we actually don't have that for ourselves, right? Like, who holds space for our, nigh impossible dreams, right? Like, so many times we encounter our folks when they are stuck and feeling despair, and it's even hard for them to risk the vulnerability of like imagining that things could be different, but there's just enough hope for them to try. And I think that that's just so necessary for transformation. And I love that we're able to create some of that possibility back for all of us, because we're so accustomed to holding that for others. But I see and hear so often that we forget to nurture our own dreams, or that we don't always have, peers or colleagues who hold room for the impossible to be real for us. So I feel so thankful and grateful that this is a way that we can contribute to the conversation, right? That sure, we can't hold container for everybody, but in writing this, in these letters, that my hope, and I believe that our hope really was, okay, how can we invite some of that energy back for us?
Yeah. It's also, I think, at the level of the collective, the level of the field, we really do need we need to support our emerging clinicians having an eye on what's possible, because our field is incredible and deeply imperfect, right? Like we have not reached a space where the field of mental health really honors lots of kinds of wisdom, really honors lots of representation of what, who gets to be a therapist, who gets to be a client, what does the space get to be about. And so I think that's why our field is stronger when people at every stage of development are like, okay, so this is what is, but what else is possible? What's missing? What's left out? What needs to be pushed? What needs to be opened up?
Yeah, I mean, it's the antidote for burnout, as you said, probably for established therapists who, are really feeling that burnout. But for the emerging therapists, another piece in this issue is the long, lonely trek to licensure. It's hard. It's really hard to be a new therapist trying to navigate this field. And our dreams, our hopes is what can help propel us through those stages, and those can only be nurtured by others in the field. And you guys talk about the critical value of friendships like the one that you two share across generations. So, let's bring it. This is what I always try to have our authors do and what you guys do in the piece. We're talking about something very conceptual, maybe possibly amorphous, but the point of voicing the BHAGs out loud is that they become concrete. What are some BHAGs you hear from this emerging generation of a therapist? Just to throw out some examples to maybe get people thinking about their own.
Yeah, I love how willing folks at the beginning of their careers are to sort of problematize the rigid boundaries that we've had, a lot of the deference, or, our field can be, and sometimes necessarily is, can be very rigid, right? And so I've heard, even in our meetups, we've heard things like, well, what would it be like for us to do therapy in adjunct to cooking? Right. And so we come together and create a meal. What would it be like for us to work in a setting that was committed to being out in nature? What would it be like for someone to not just have a somatic practice sitting in my office, but for their toes to be in the soil and for us to be experiencing the world around us in real time? What would it look like for us to be talking about something, but then me to be able to go with them out in the world and experience their world with them? Right. And these are pushing brand new frontiers. And I know that for many of us, as we hear some of them might raise some alarms around, well, what about this? And what about this? And this is a risk here, and that's a risk there. And those are important considerations. But so much in the dream, I hear the heart of what I think we're all called to do, which is, how can we really be with people? How can our relationship to our clients or to our field or to our communities be embodied and heart-centered? How can we lay hands on the places that hurt and really help them change? And I'm excited about that. And I want to honor and treasure the vulnerability of that and the intention of all of that as we imagine what could be possible.
Alexandra, before you respond, I just want to maybe invite our viewers, if you want to put some of your own BHAGs into the
chat. I think we're fun people to share the BHAGs with, right, Shadeen? I think that there's I don't think I've ever met a BHAG where I'm meh. I'm always what?
You and I are very much the same. I am a great cheerleader. I'm excited every time. Very, very. We were talking about dogs earlier, y'all. Very much golden retriever energy. Whenever you're I have a dream, I'm I want to know.
Tell me about your dream.
Oh my God, that sounds so great. I'm what is exciting about that to you? I want that for you so bad.
I think I know a person who knows a person who might be able to.
Oh yeah, you're so great at that. You're a beautiful connector, and I think that is one of the ways that I see you continue to contribute to people's dreams, is that you actually give them a pathway to build relationships that could continue to foster and fuel them, right? That you're not just enthusiastic about it, that you actually help, right, build a network of support. And that's something that I really respect and admire and have personally benefited from in my relationship to you.
Thank you. It's a inch towards becoming an elder in the field, right? I've been in this kind of middle space between the emerging and the wise, and I think I'm creeping more towards team elder, and that is, it just feels responsibility of okay, who needs what? I think it's because I was so well mentored. Like I feel like I have so many. Shadeen writes beautifully in this letter about an experience, a very specific experience she had of being mentored, and I think it's such a beautiful responsibility for those of us as we gain experience. Like part of gaining experience is gain, our book of business gets bigger, our list of people we know gets bigger, and to always be thinking about, okay, so who needs a door, who could have a door open, who could, and we know from the research around helping or offering gives as much to the person who's doing the offering as it does to the person who's receiving something. And so it really is, I really like appreciate my place in the matrix. It's part of, I think part of my BHAG, right, is for me personally is being able to be somebody in this field that is trusted, where someone can come to me and say, so I think that is, I think that's part of the that was, we structured this where Shadeen wrote to the experienced folks and I wrote to the emerging folks. And I think that was really central in Shadeen's message, was to, as you gain experience and wisdom in this field, be looking around who would benefit from having a door open, and not as like a favor, but as like this person, like this benefits all of us. When one of us grows and has opportunity and has a chance in a space, we all reap the benefits of that.
And it's a macro level process, right? That some of this is world building, and also some of this is like deeply healing for our souls and our communities, right? I think, I mean, all the three of us talk about this often, and you and I especially, Allie, that some of this is also some of our like social, I think, responsibility, if we were to take that on, that if we acknowledge that we need all of us together, and our work in our field can be incredibly isolating. But also too, when we acknowledge that, emerging therapists are often young, and so that puts them in a position of disempowerment in our field. When we acknowledge how many emerging clinicians are people of color, are queer, are first generation, are immigrants, like there are so many ways in which us continuing to come together really makes it less and less possible for us to be divided by all of the forces of oppression that plague us and our clients. And so for us to be able to keep making possible for our dreams to be realized, almost all of our dreams are about connection, right? We keep dreaming of deeper and deeper connections. And I know that so many of us want that for ourselves and want that for each other. And so there are so many small ways that we can just leave openings for that. And something that I really took away from the letter as you wrote it, is for also young folks to keep showing up, right? Is to keep reaching out, to know that those of us who are here and are here for us and our clients, but are also here for them. And it's hard to know that. I remember my very first conference, and I hadn't even graduated undergrad at that point. And I went to my first conference. I was so young, my parents picked me up.
No.
How young were you? That's pretty young.
Yeah, I was 18, maybe. And I think my partner and I were together, so I was 19 at that point. And they picked me up, from the conference, and I just wept. Right, from just like overwhelm. And I started to build, I still have some of those relationships today, but it was transformative because I didn't know what was possible. I didn't know anything about the field. I didn't know anyone in it. I didn't know how I was going to get from where I was to there. And so to be in space with people, and so this is kind of a side plug to come to the Networker if you can. My first conference wasn't the Networker, but it is a place that I come back to over and over again. But to be in space with people, but to have people see you and even just acknowledge that this little impossible dream that you have around, like, maybe I could be a therapist, and for someone to say, sure.
Right.
Sure. Right. Even though nobody did anything about it, but they just believed it with me.
Yeah.
And that transformed the trajectory of literally my entire life.
Yeah. Conferences are so, all three of us are conference nerds. We all love them.
That's how we all know each other.
Yeah, I mean, I can think, I have like little flashes of my kind of first professional conferences, and just like sitting there, like feeling like the biggest imposter, like what the heck am I doing here? But also like that's the transformation, right? Like the conference works you. The conference works an emerging clinician because it is in the experience of sitting there, and it's different. It's different than being in class. It's different than being supervised. It's different than being at a practicum. Being at a conference is such a unique and essential space for like starting to step into professional identity. And I think because so much of conference life is oftentimes the workshops are kind of reporting from the trenches, reporting on, what's new, what's emerging, but it's also all the side stuff that's happening.
It's what's happening in the hallways, right?
Yeah. And it's really important.
And even just the small moments. I just wanted to say really quickly that even the small moments for any of us who, even if you don't feel like you're, far established, right? That like even just acknowledging the person sitting next to you, right? Like makes a huge difference. And it is not lost on someone entering the field. If you imagine, if any of you have had the experience of being like the new kid in school, and I had that experience many, many times over, to just have someone acknowledge that they're there, that you're there, that you exist, that you can take up space, even speaking to, your imposter syndrome, right? Like someone who at the time, like who is now a colleague of mine, but that I really looked up to, after a session just said like, oh, like you're new, because I had a first time attendee thing. I said, yeah. And I was shaking. And she's like, I'm glad you're here. And that was it. That was the whole exchange, right? It didn't go any further than that. But even just a small moment, to make eye contact with another human being and smile at them, we need that, and that changes things for people. So I would love for us to do that. And we've seen so many beautiful friendships emerge even from this emerging clinicians space.
It's not, don't just save it for your clients. We have to look around at our colleagues and create those relationships, those friendships, cultivate those. This is a short conversation. Unfortunately, I think we could talk about this forever and ever. I'd be happy to do it again. But I want to just leave us off. And maybe, I don't know if you could offer, well, let me offer one thing to people. I realized, Cole, do we have a link to the article that we've been talking about, or no, not quite. That's okay. Go to Psychotherapy Network, our website, go to the latest issue, November, December. You will see this article, Love Letters to the Field. I really encourage you to take in the wisdom that Shadeen and Alexandra offer to their colleagues, and spread it around. It's from the heart, and it's meant for the heart. And I think, before we leave off, maybe we can just popcorn around a little bit. What you would like to see more of amongst your colleagues in the field in terms of mentorship and support, and what do you most hope to nurture, and what can people kind of clutch to their chests as we leave them today?
I'm so cautious about asking any more of our fellow mental health providers, because we're stretched. The burnout rates are quite high. So I do think it's a call. To me, the biggest call to action is for systems, for those with power, to really, when you're thinking about your practice or your institution, to really be building in mentorship and collegial spaces and peer supervision, to be building that into contracts and agreements and work weeks. Like, I think that ought not be a kind of off the side of the desk after hours kind of a thing. That to me is really essential. If you're going to ask your team of clinicians to do this very hard work, how are you going to support them doing that hard work? And having those peer spaces, peer supervision, time for kind of communal care, I think is really important. I worry about us leaving it at the individual level, although I'm definitely here for therapists creating whatever sorts of one-off relationships they can. Those are essential. But I also think it's for those with power and who are creating systems to really be thinking, okay, how do we care for those who care?
Yeah. I would end in the places where you feel like you have some, power or access or autonomy, or if you're like me, a little bit of a rebellious spirit on it, to find space to play. I know that we are pressed often to rest more, and that is also necessary for our well-being. But play was our first language, and so much of our allowing ourselves to play, or at least recognizing what keeps us from feeling playful, sits in the exact same space as where all of our dreams live. Right? It's just so inherently vulnerable to dream, and so I'm speaking in part to folks who are naming like it's hard. This is hard, and what do I do if I feel like I shouldn't, or I'm not good enough? And I just invite you that like there is no way to earn your right to dream, right? The whole world is built on impossibilities. I mean, the thing that sits with me so often whenever I'm feeling like that is too big a dream, like literally the ground moves. You know what I mean? Like if you live in like California, you know this very well. Like the literal earth that is supposed to be the foundation of everything moves. Right. And if that for me, it is just a reminder that like impossible things happen all of the time, because we make it so. And so the more that we can tap into our relationship to playfulness, or the more that we can connect to our sense of hope, or even if we could just land on desire, like allowing yourself to want things that you don't yet have, I think that it is radical. I think that it is revolutionary, and I deeply believe that you deserve it.
Thank you two so much. Again, I'm just one last plug. Thank you, Cole. If you're not a subscriber to Psychotherapy Network or Magazine, we're giving a special offer.
It's a good one.
$12 a year. You can use the QR code in the corner of your screen or the URL below. As the editor-in-chief, I just want to say that my hope for the content that the incredible team and the incredible authors of Psychotherapy Network are put out, we hope above anything else that this helps you nurture your dreams as a therapist in the field. Thank you so much to both of you. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. We hope to see you in other ways, engaging with us however you can. We are a community, and we want you to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Livia, for your support on this article and in all of the beautiful pieces that appear in the magazine. Every single issue, they come to us feeling very well loved and well nourished, and certainly Shadeen and I felt that way in our experience writing.
Very cared for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for being here.